Good morning to you all. This is Mr. Rao. I welcome you all to one more exciting session of biological science today. In our previous classes, we studied more detailedly about various types of diseases. As a part of that, we started studying about amoebiasis, which is caused by Entamoeba histolytica. So in my previous class, I explained about the three distinct stages of this Entamoeba histolytica through which it passes in its life cycle. In today's session, I do give you the detailed explanation of the entire life cycle of this Entamoeba histolytica, right? And coming to here, this is a parasite which lives in your intestine. Particularly, as I said, it lives in your large intestine, right? Here, there is a stage of this parasite which we call it as a tropozoite. This tropozoite, it lives in the wall of your intestine, particularly the mucosa and submucosa. And there I said the tropozoite is a stage actually which is an active stage and it is a motile stage. And this is a stage which is known as a feeding stage as well as the pathogenic stage also. So when it is living in the wall of a large intestine, this tropozoite undergoes to multiple mitotic divisions, right? Multiple divisions will be taken place within this tropozoite. So I am reminding you the structure of the tropozoite again to you. See that it has got a cartwheel shaped nucleus, right? One single lobopodium is present, right? It has got a food vacuole as well as it has got ribosomes also present within that, scattered. That the internal cytoplasm is distinguished into external ectoplasm, which is agranular, then internal endoplasm, which is granular. This is the tropozoite stage. What happens during this time? It undergoes to the mitotic divisions multiple times. After repeated mitotic divisions, some of the tropozoites are released into the lumen of an intestine. This is an important point. So these tropozoites, as I said, undergoes to the multiple the divisions, which is a kind of asexual division, that is a binary fission. Then these are all some number of tropozoites are get released into the lumen. Afterwards, these tropozoites get transformed into the pre-cystic stage, the next stage of its life cycle, right? So this is what the pre-cystic stage. And this pre-cystic stage, I already explained, is a non-motile stage and non-feeding stage. This is present either oval in a shape or the spherical in the shape. It also has got the nucleus, right? The characteristic feature of this one, they do have got chromatoid bodies and they do have got glycogen granules also. Since I said the pre-cystic stage is a non-feeding stage, then how does it get its food? Then here it has got some reserved food within it, which we call it as chromatoid bars as well as glycogen granules, right? Later on, this pre-cystic stage, which is present in the lumen of the large intestine, later on get transformed into a cystic stage. That means this cystic stage is a circular in its shape, has got a nucleus, and here chromatoid bars are present. Within that, glycogen granules also present. The most characteristic feature of the cystic stage, it has got a thin cyst wall is present. It is very hard and resistant one. This is the stage actually it comes out of a infected person body along with his fecal matter. So as it is coming out, actually it has to expose to the various unfavorable conditions. In order to protect itself from unfavorable conditions, this cyst wall, it protects. It helps to it. Okay, this is one thing. Now at this cystic stage, what happens? Whatever the nucleus is present in the cystic stage is undergoes to two times divisions. Two successive nucleus division will be taken place. One division which results in the formation of two nuclei, and that followed by the second division that results in the formation of 4 nuclei. So the cystic stage later on get developed into the another stage that we call it as tetranucleate cyst stage. The tetranucleate cyst stage, tetra, it represents here the 4. Nucleate in the sense it has got the 4 nuclei. Hence this stage we call it as tetranucleate cyst stage. It's a very important bit on this. This tetranucleate cyst stage is actually the infective stage to the man. That means this is the stage at which it enters into the another healthy human body or another host body. That is one thing. So you can see the 4 nuclei are present, right? The cyst wall is present around that. A cartwheel shaped nuclei, all these are. This is called the tetranucleated cyst. So this is the stage at which actually it is present in the soil. It may get transported to the food and water, and it may cause the contamination of your food and water. This is the thing it takes place. So as I said, it comes out of the human body along with his fecal matter is one important thing. Here it goes and come in contact with the air and water and cause the contamination of your food, right? The contamination, it takes place. So when you consume such a kind of food, contaminated food, and when you drink such a kind of contaminated water, this tetranucleate cyst actually enter in your digestive system. It enter into your gut. Finally, it reaches to your small intestine. When it reaches to the small intestine, there is an enzyme released in your small intestine which is known as a trypsin. This trypsin, it acts on the cyst wall and dissolves it. This is a very important point. See this, within the small intestine, what happens? It dissolves the cyst so that the tetranucleate stage of this entamoeba comes out of the cyst wall. Hence, we call it as excystic amoeba. Point clear? Excystic amoeba it is. It is technically known as metacyst. Metacyst. Here the point to be noted is in the intestinal juice there you do have trypsin. An enzyme is present. This trypsin acts on the cyst wall and dissolves it. Now I do have a question to you. With which kind of nutrient or material does the cyst wall of this tetranucleate cyst or P cyst is made up of or formed? So you should have a link. You should here recollect the type of trypsin is. So there we studied the human digestion and absorption. There in the intestinal juice, which we call it as succus entericus, has got here a kind of enzyme known as a trypsin. There are certain kind of enzymes are there. They're all here which can act on the carbohydrates. Some of them are act on proteins, whereas some of them are act on the lipids and as well as the nucleic acids also. Trypsin is actually a proteolytic enzyme. This is an important point. Proteolytic enzyme it is. That means this is an enzyme act on the proteins and it can break down them into simple molecules like amino acids. So my point is, since the trypsin is acting on the cyst wall and dissolving it, that means digesting it, so we can conclude that the cyst wall is made up of proteins. This is an important point. Right. Now what happened here? Because of dissolving the cyst wall, this tetranucleate cyst or encystic amoeba, it comes out of the cyst wall, or else the metacyst, it comes out of the cyst wall. Now what happens here? This is the one which is comes out and it remains like this. Now what happens here? Within this metacyst, again one more nuclear division will be taken place. Resulting of that, whatever is present in the with the 8 nuclei form, it has got again 4 nuclei forms, and will develop into the 8 nucleic forms. And these 8 nuclei, then what happens? Will attain some amount of the cytoplasm. They do get some amount of the cytoplasm, and later on here they do get breaks down. Resulting of that, 8 daughter entamoeba will be formed. Is the point clear? 8 daughter entamoeba will be formed. These are otherwise known as here metacystic tropozoites also. These 8 will be released now. See this. Right? And each one is Entamoeba histolytica. And this actually known as metacystic tropozoite also. These are known as metacystic tropozoites, right? This it takes place. Finally, when they get matures, they do develop into a tropozoite again. So this tropozoite is now developed into another host or other healthy human body. Now they do start here acting on the mucosa and start dissolving it. Then it go deep into the submucosa. Then it causes the ulcers in your alimentary canal. But I will explain about all these things. This is the way how it is get here passes through all the different stages in its life cycle. Now, in some of the peculiar conditions, what happens to these tropozoites? These tropozoites actually they do become mature and break down the blood vessels, right? The walls of the blood vessels, and they do enter into the bloodstream. It's an important point. So when these tropozoites are actually become matures, these tropozoites, some cases, some peculiar cases, they do here break down the wall of a blood vessels, and they all get enter into the bloodstream. Clear? Then from the bloodstream, actually they do enter your here, particularly the liver first. From the liver, it is get spread to the various body organs. And such a condition is known as secondary amoebiasis. And such a kind of migration of this parasite apart from your alimentary canal is known as extra-intestinal migration. Very important point it is. Extra-intestinal migration, and that condition we can consider as extra-intestinal amoebiosis also. This is what we call as secondary amoebiasis too. Okay, this kind of life cycle also we can happen to see in some peculiar conditions. So this is all about actually your Entamoeba histolytica's life cycle, right? Let us see here pathogenicity. So when you are get infected, how it causes the various problems in our body, and what they are all, we will see now in a detailed way. See, dear students, the pathogenicity. What I said just now, actually this is the parasite. When you happen to see, this is present in your alimentary canal. You are all well aware about the histology of your alimentary canal. When you see at its center, there you can see the lumen of your alimentary canal is present, right? Then here just above that lumen, you can see the mucosa. This is what we call is mucosa. Underneath the mucosa, there you can happen to see your submucosa. This portion is called submucosa, and that actually followed by here a muscular layer is present. That muscular layer is known as muscularis. There you can see circular muscles as well as longitudinal muscles are present, right? This is what we call as muscularis, and that is followed by the serosa. The outermost layer is known as serosa, whereas this one is known as muscularis. Clear? Now my point, actually the tropozoites are the stage of the Entamoeba histolytica which are first initially present in your mucosa. Then it releases a histolysin, a particular kind of enzyme, and this enzyme act on the tissues of your mucosa and dissolves it, so that this can go deep into your submucosa also. So by dissolving the tissues in a mucosa, they do go deep into your submucosa, and finally it causes the ulcers. As I said here, the histolysin is an enzyme released by this. Thereafter, it goes deep into your submucosa and causes the ulcers within this. Now, you can happen to see ulcer might be get formed here. When you see this ulcer consists of the bacteria, debris of your epithelial tissues, right, as well as some corpuscles. They are known as here lymphocytes are present within that. These are all present within this, and it finally results in the formation of abscesses, right? Abscesses is formed in your intestine, right? That is one thing. Thereafter, you can see at this time, as you know that this is actually supplied with your actually blood vessels also. The blood vessels also will be get ruptures. So you can find out the blood. Since it is a mucosa, secretes the mucus, and mucus is also present in the stool. When in that condition, when the infected person go for a defecation, then along with a stool, he can notice the blood. Some amount of blood is also present, and as well as here, mucus also get present in its stool. This is the thing it takes place. But very interestingly, some of the candidates or some of the infected persons will have this in their intestine. But the thing is, interestingly, they do not exhibit any kind of symptoms. This is a very important point. The persons who have got these things in their body but do not exhibit any kind of symptoms, they're all known as carriers. It is an important point. Or else, they have got even another name also, asymptomatic cyst passers. Clear? They're all known as asymptomatic cyst passers, the another name for them. But they do here releases the tetranucleated cyst into the soil along with their fecal matter, and they do take part in spreading of the disease. This is an important thing, right? So this is all about here the pathogenic conditions. Right. Then when I explain about the life cycle of the parasite, I said that this parasite in some of the peculiar cases here comes out of the alimentary canal and it get migrated to the various body parts, which we call it as extra-intestinal migration. Okay, finally leads to secondary amoebiosis also. That I will explain now in detail. So first one, the tropozoites, in some of the cases, it ruptures the wall of a capillaries, enter into the bloodstream. From there, it reaches to here, the liver particularly. From the bloodstream, this actually passes to your liver. There in the liver, they causes abscesses. That is an important point. It causes abscesses in the liver. That condition is called secondary amoebiosis, but it takes place in a rare conditions. From the liver, this is get transported to your lungs. From the lungs, it get transported to your heart. From the heart, it get transported to your brain. From the brain, it goes to your kidneys as well as gonads. Gonads in the sense, here the testicles in a male, the ovaries in a female. So here my point is, when it is get enter into your bloodstream, from there it reaches to the liver. From the liver, it is get transported to various body parts like lungs, your heart, your brain, your kidneys, your gonads. So this kind of migration, transportation is taking place outside the intestine and among the various body parts. Hence we call it as here extra-intestinal amoebiosis. And that entire transportation is known as extra-intestinal migration also. Clear? This is what. Now, what about the prophylaxis? How can you prevent this disease? Let us see now in a detailed way. And first and foremost thing, that you know how it gets spreads. And you know very well, here this is get transported or get spread because of contaminated water and food. So what you need to do initially, first and foremost important thing, you should take boiled as well as filtered water. Once the water is get contaminated by this Tetron nucleate cyst, when you consume this, it enters into your gut and finally cause infections in us. So that in order to prevent this kind of diseases, what we need to do? Only the thing is here, using a boiled as well as filtered water is one thing. The next mode of transmission actually because of consuming the contaminated food. And when you are going and playing it in the soil also, since it is present within the soil, it may be get trapped in between your nails. So without washing the hands, if you take the food, then generally this may enter in our body and cause the infections in us. So what I mean to say, you have to wash your hands thoroughly before you are consuming the food. Meanwhile, the fruits and vegetables that you get it from the market must be here washed thoroughly. This is an important point. Washing of your hands, fruits and vegetables properly is one important thing. So in India, most of the people go for a defecation in open places. So if you go like that, the fecal matter will be here, get mixed up with your soil, then these infective stages are present within the soil. When you play within the soil, it may get transferred to you. Or one or another way by the mechanical vectors, these infective stages may get transferred to the food and water and may get here cause of contamination of these two things. So if you use any here a septic tank toilets which are get closed, so that the infective stages present in the fecal matter do not get an opportunity to come in contact with a water and food material and with you also directly. So we can avoid the infection by such a way. So these are all the three different types of methods, prophylaxis methods that helps to us for prevention of this disease. Is the point clear? Right. Then unfortunately, if you get this disease, what will be the here treatment for this or the drugs that are all available to us? The two types of drugs that we use in order to here treatment for this disease. One is metronidazole is one thing. Thereafter tinidazole is the second one. Sorry. Tinidazole is one drug that we are using in order to treat the disease, and meanwhile metronidazole is one more actually the drug that we are using. So this is the treatment for this amoebiasis. In order to kill this Entamoeba histolytica, we do use these two things. By here following the above mentioned precautionary steps, we can prevent the spreading of a disease also. This is, students, all about the one more important protozoan disease, that is amoebiasis, and the detailed information regarding that. Right? Thank you all.